EMG question of the day. Which currents is the direct result of ionic passage through voltage-gated cation channels? A. 1 through 4, B. 1 and 3, C. 1 and 4, D. 2 and 3, E. 2 and 4. This figure represents an advancing quadrupole in a muscle fiber. The red and blue arrows indicate sodium ion. The arrows' heads point to the direction of the flow of sodium ion. We know that the quadrupole is advancing and the direction of the advance because the leading dipole is bigger than the trailing dipole. An advancing quadrupole is brought about by the interplay of two types of currents, capacitance and ionic. Capacitance currents does not involve voltage-gated sodium channels and is produced by the transmembrane repulsion of sodium ions. Ion current results from the transit of sodium ions into the cell through the voltage-gated sodium channels that are embedded in the membrane. I will now attempt to animate this figure to show you how advancements takes place. The parenthesis just introduced indicates the patch of membrane that will sustain the different parts of the quadrupole as it advances. At this instance, the patch of membrane is participating in the production of capacitant currents. The patch of membrane is behaving as a source because sodium ions are departing from it. The sodium ions are departing because they are being repelled by the arrival of sodium ions as represented by the just added purple arrow. The arriving sodium ions charge the membrane, transforming it into a capacitor, capable of repelling the sodium ions on the other side of the membrane. The current created by the repulsion of sodium ions will occur regardless of voltage-gated sodium channels in the patch membrane being or not being functional. As the quadrupole advances, the patch of membrane is now participating in the production of ionic current. The patch of membrane is behaving as a sink because sodium is moving towards it. The current so created will only occur if the voltage-gated sodium channels embedded in the patch of membrane are functional and enough sodium ions have reached the membrane patch to activate the voltage-gated sodium channel. With further quadrupole progression, the patch of membrane is again participating in the production of ionic current. The membrane is behaving as a sink, but this time for the trailing dipole. As before, the current so created will only occur if voltage-gated sodium channels embedded in the patch of membrane are functional and are activated. With even further quadrupole progression, the patch of membrane is now participating in the production of capacitor currents. The membrane is behaving as the source for the trailing dipole. This current will only occur if the sink of the trailing dipole has occurred. This is so because the patch of membrane depends on sodium ions brought into the cell through the voltage-gated sodium channels to reach the intracellular surface of the membrane and charge it. So the answer to this question is D. Thank you very much for your attention.